So, I know about Emerson, Lake and Palmer, but I've only ever heard a handful of tracks. Let's change that. Here's Tarkus, the sophomore album that nearly drove them apart and took a long time to win over its audience. But look at that album art. Side A is a 7-part suite about semi mythical creatures portrayed in the titles and artwork. The protagonist gets stabbed in the eye and runs off into the water. It's everything I've ever tried to create, and I haven't heard it before tonight. It is prog personified, with wacky organs and synths, badass guitar solos, and occasional singing. Side B is some other stuff, and that's cool too. I generally sneer when people say things like, "Why didn't I find this sooner?" But for me, it's because I listen to anything all the time. I'll never get to listen to everything, but I try to make a dent. This is a great album, and it's earned a spot on my listen to this 300 more times shelf next to Spirit and Procol Harum. Definitely go check it out if you get a chance. Now, my original plan was to only do one album a night, unless the first one was somehow unsatisfying, but tonight's choice of Tarkus was based on a cool cover art for an album I've never heard before. And since there's 2 rum and cokes for every can, I'm more than happy to say this is an awesome cover for a band I never even knew existed, which for me is saying something. I hope I'm not disappointed. And the answer is yes and no. The band is quite good, and I want to hear their other 3 albums, but this album shows some definite disadvantages holding them back, in no particular order. They can't seem to decide if they're pop folk or blues rock, which wouldn't be bad if they were recognizably the same band in both genres. The band is primarily a front for the producers, songwriters, and you can tell there's a little something that just comes across as manufactured in every track. Like a lyric that doesn't sound right or a clearly contrived string arrangement. It genuinely sounds like Scott and Vivian Holtzman were workhorsedly imitating a particular band or song that was already popular, but they weren't creative enough to do it right. There's no stylistic coherence to this album at all. One moment they sound like real contemporary rockers Steppenwolf or Iron Butterfly, both bands we'll hear a lot of in the future. The next, they're singing a faux Neil Diamond ballad, and there's Spanish guitar and trumpet and tempo meter shifts for no musically relevant reason. So, to recap, if I just randomly picked any track from this album, I'd say, oh, that's really interesting. But when you smash them all together, I think, is this just a compilation of studio work? Oh well. It's certainly not the first time a cool cover left me feeling underwhelmed, but I definitely wouldn't call any particular track terrible. We'll give it a good solid meh. At the very least, I had a lot to say about it, and that should count for something.